are now organizing spontaneous kind of upsurge throughout West Bengal. Nearly 115 centers, urban and rural, there only women are will spend their nights, whole night, on the streets. So
Wow.
the whole scenario is very tense and thrilling, and people are eagerly waiting what will happen, what the government will do.
Of course.
And even my daughter is going to participate, in every, almost in every house. That is
Yes.
the situation here.
Yes.
Anyway, we are already late, and this is for the first time we got so late. Generally we start sharp at 6.
No,
Anyway,
I'm
I
sorry.
apolo-
I'm
I
sorry. I apologize.
apologize.
I didn't have the link. I'm sorry. So yeah.
Oh yeah, the link came late. I also got the link late, and I apologize. We
Okay.
apologize to you for this delay. Acha,
Oh,
let us start.
sorry,
Okay.
sir.
Prakash,
Yes, sir.
this is
Yes,
our
sir.
secretary, a young advocate, our secretary of this organization,
Hi.
Rashtrobigyan
Nice to
Chorcha
meet you.
Kendra. Prakash Chakraborty, this man.
Thank you, sir. Okay, live now. সকলকে শুভ সন্ধ্যা। রাষ্ট্রবিজ্ঞান চর্চা কেন্দ্রের পক্ষ থেকে আজকে এক বিশেষ আলোচনা সভা, an international webinar organized by রাষ্ট্রবিজ্ঞান চর্চা কেন্দ্র, চেয়ারপারসন প্রফেসর প্রদীপ বাসু, স্পিকার ডক্টর রোলান্ডো এম দুরান্দো ভ্যালাডেজ। আমি টপিক হচ্ছে রিসেন্ট ইলেকশনস ইন ইউকে অ্যান্ড ফ্রেন্স। আমি অধ্যাপক প্রদীপ বাসু স্যারকে অনুরোধ করব আজকের সভা পরিচালনা করার জন্য। স্যার প্লিজ।
Thank you so much, Prakash. You understand, Dr. Rolando, that
Yes.
you have to speak in Bengali, because we have come to know that you know several languages, so we expect you will speak in Bengali.
I would. Yes.
Next time we will expect you to give a Bengali lecture here.
I would be glad to. I mean, I would really enjoy. I mean, it's like I am very curious, and it's like to get to know more about Bengali culture. I'm sure there are a lot of fascinating features of which I am not involved or known, but I would certainly like to spend time and get to know better more a lot of Bengali culture. I mean, that is like. So I leave the door open. I leave the door open for the possibility. So I don't say no. I don't refuse the the invitation. So let's see. Let's see. So,
thank you so much. Okay, let me start.
Yes.
Achha, first of all, I will thank Rashtrobigyan Chorcha Kendra, who are the organizer. This is an academic platform, non-party, and several thousand students and teachers and PhD students and professors are attached with this platform, mostly who belong to political science, but also from different other disciplines. People are attached to it, and mostly from West Bengal, but also from different single spots all over India and abroad also. I thank especially Advocate Mr. Prakash Chakraborty and Professor Shomiron Das and Payal Das and other organizers. They not only organize the academic seminar, but also they are helping the poor students in the remote districts, especially in rural areas, with books and financial assistance, etc. And they are doing a lot of social work. Actually, tomorrow, India's Independence Day from the British rule, which took place on 15th August 1947. In order to celebrate Independence Day, they are organizing social activity day, and they are providing food and books and clothes to different poor students in different places of India. Anyway, today's okay. I am just my name is Pradip Basu. I retired as the professor of political science from Presidency University, Kolkata, and I am I feel very honored that this platform they frequently invite me to chair the sessions. Sometimes I myself give some lectures, and today's topic is it is an international webinar on recent elections in Britain and France. And our honorable speaker is Dr. Rolando M. Dromundo Valadez. I don't know whether I have been able to pronounce correctly.
You did it perfect. You did it perfect. Yes, it was okay.
Thank
Yeah.
you. A brief introduction that Dr. Dromundo is a PhD in geopolitics from Pisa University, Italy. He has been teaching in Pisa University and then in a university in Mexico and other places. His mother tongue is Spanish, but he knows at least 6 languages. And his work is focused on European developments and the post Soviet space. He has also remarkable journalistic achievements. He has 15 years of journalistic experience. He has been a noted researcher in different academic institutions. He has been a political analyst in different TV channels around the globe, in USA, in different countries of Europe, etc. Now, we will request Dr. Dromundo to start his lecture.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Pradip. I'm very honored. I really appreciate the invitation, and for me, it's a first time to be able of sharing with the people in the in West Bengal area. So for me, I mean, it's like it's a pleasure for me. I'll try to share now my presentation from here. Okay, let me, because I have to charge it somehow for me. So 1 second. Okay, I found it. Yes, I think yes. I don't know if it's possible to see it already or like. I have one. Okay. Tell me if you can see it already, because it's the first time I try to share with this platform. So like. Is it possible to see it now? No, not yet. No. Okay. I got it. Yeah, yes. Well, hold on. Sorry, 1 second. Okay. It's done. Okay, perfect. I think you can you see it already? Yes, it's okay. I don't hear. Yes.
I can't see it.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. So
Prakash,
okay. It's you can see it already, right?
when I will be able to see it, I will let you know.
Okay.
Not yet.
Now. What are you seeing the title now of the presentation, or like?
No.
I don't understand what's happening. Okay. Let me see if that's the, because I have it. I have it open here. Hold on.
Prakash, Prakash, are you there? No.
Okay, let me try something else. Okay, slide. No, no. Uh, I just want to. No, 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 no. Okay, let's. Huh? Why I cannot see it? Huh? Okay, let me try something more. Give me 1 second, because if not, I'll start like this. I will continue trying. I will start speaking not to take time. Okay. So meanwhile, I am sorry for this, or I don't know if I can send it. Maybe if I uh, uh, hold on 1 second. I will give it one more try. Yeah. Okay. No, nothing. Okay, so the idea was to talk about the recent political elections in France and in the UK, that they were very sound for many different reasons. They had a big impact in Europe. People was expecting, I mean, what could happen, mostly in the French case, because of what it could represent. So there was a big worry of what the risk of the extreme right arriving to power and getting control of the parliament. So that's why there was a lot of worry about that. So in that case, I will start like making a little bit of the global context. What takes us to the election? What happened? And why, and then to analyze, I mean, a little bit of the results. I have divided the presentation in 4 parts. I want to speak, I mean, first about the global and European political and geopolitical context, what has been happening in Europe, and what was the political impact in France and in the UK. No, so and in the recent elections. No, it's important to understand, I mean, in that sense, what had been around, what were the main issues, and so how it showed it impacting on the results. No, secondly, I will speak a little bit about the French electoral the electoral system under the Fifth Republic. The Fifth Republic, I mean, has many specific features that are different from the rest of Europe in how the electoral and political system works. So it's worth to explain a little bit, to have like some clearance, so people get to know, because it's a very specific political system that is not similar to other countries in Europe. I will speak a little bit about the specifics of the French left, what is the La France Insoumise, and what it means and how it was formed, but also about the other left parties in France. Then I will speak about the UK, about a little bit, a small recap about the Tory governments in the UK, from David Cameron to Rishi Sunak, no, and obviously to explain a little bit, I mean, what happened after the main elements of 14 years of the Tories in power, and then how it reflected in the elections that brought Stamer to become prime minister some weeks ago. Okay, and so that's the main idea, and I will give it another chance to share the. It said that I would need some my. It said that my browser is blocking the presentation, but I don't know why. Hold on. Let me give it another try, please, because I really would like to share my presentation with you. And okay, sorry for. We share screen, and we see. And okay, and oh, I don't know what's happening with this.
Dr. Dromundo,
Yes.
in the meanwhile, I should have given an introduction to the topic. I
Yes.
forgot to do that because we were already delayed. So
Okay.
may I take only 5 minutes from you
Okay. Okay.
in
Okay.
the
Okay. Okay.
meanwhile?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Okay. Okay. Okay.
So for our audience, uh, I know that we are living in a third world country, far from Britain and France, continental Europe and Britain, and at the same time, because of globalization, the communication has become highly developed, and today the impact of Britain, politics in Britain and politics in France have been quite obvious in India. Uh, and India was a British colony, we know, and in different ways we were connected to French culture, French revolution, French ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity of 1789. So, uh, many people in India were interested to know what are the political implications of the recent elections in UK and France. In fact, we know that throughout the world there is a rise of extreme rightist forces, sometimes called authoritarian forces or the fascist forces, etc. But quite in contrast, we find that in Britain, after long time, uh, the Labour Party has done quite well, although they have not been able to come in power alone, but the achievements are quite significant. And also in France, in spite of the rise of the extreme rightist forces, finally it has been possible for non-rightist, non-authoritarian forces to secure a good position, although they have not been able to come to power alone. Uh,
Yes.
the 2024 UK election was held on 4th July 2024 to elect 650 members of Parliament to the House of Commons. The opposition Labour Party, led by Starmer, defeated the governing Conservative Party, led by Rishi Sunak, as just has been mentioned by our speaker. And the election was the first general election victory for Labour Party since 2005 and ended the Conservatives' 14-year tenure as the primary governing party. And then we must note that the Conservative Party under Boris Johnson won a large majority at the 2019 elections, and the new government passed the Brexit withdrawal agreement. And now Keir Starmer won the Labour Party's 2020 leadership election, succeeding Jeremy Corbyn. Under his leadership, Starmer repositioned the party away from the left and moved toward the political center, and also emphasized the elimination of anti-Semitism within the party. Uh, anyway, and in France, the election took place on 30th June and 7th July 2024 to elect all 577 members of the 17th National Assembly of the Fifth French Republic. And the election followed by dissolution of the National Assembly by President Emmanuel Macron. And but what are the deeper political significance? We must be looking forward to know about the political significance
Yes.
of
Yes. Yes.
these two elections
Of course.
for the rest of world, for the rest of world politics.
Okay. Okay.
So
Perfect.
I
Yeah.
will request Dr. Dromundo to resume.
Yes. Yes, I already charged two presentations. I don't. They're in the system, and I send it to you by mail. I hope if you have can have some technical. I will meanwhile start explaining so we don't get late with that. So it's like I hope we can manage to, I mean, to show them. So it's like because I see them that they are charged here in the webinar, but I don't know that they're not showing for a certain reason. So I don't know exactly how to handle it. So if but I will start meanwhile to explain. So if to say, so as I was saying, no, in the as Professor Pradip was saying, and I was mentioning, I will speak a little bit about the global political context and what's happening. That obviously the world has now it's in a completely different configuration of what we had 10 or 20 years ago. We are witnessing a struggle for geopolitical predominance in different areas of the world between the United States, Russia, and China, but not exclusively to these countries. Those are the, I mean, but they are like the ones that they are more involved in many conflicts of the world, and that has had an impact, no? Because obviously this struggle and the way each of these countries are trying to portray their own political projects and political and geopolitical projects in different areas of the world have had an impact, no? And have had an impact in different regions. So in the case of the United States, I will just mention barely because there's no time. I mean, how the expansion of NATO has, of course, brought a completely crash with Russian interest of defense in around Ukraine. So this expansion of NATO, of course, I mean, brought Europe to the brink of war, to a level of tension that had not been seen in many decades, and to have a war that is already has lasted more than 2 years, and more than 500,000 people have died already in the field. So this war that has a clear involvement of NATO countries again to trying to not counter Russian influence, has, like in the field of Ukraine, has a direct involvement, has forced the European countries to take sides without middle colors, without light shades. No, it's like you are full NATO member supporting Ukraine military, or you will be labeled as a pro-Russia. No, and that's so that I mean that confrontation, I mean, obviously had an impact in the political developers, in the political foreign policy of the countries, because it was very difficult to have like a middle term position of negotiating, of trying to find a political agreement, because you would be immediately attacked or labeled as pro-Putin or pro-Russia. No, so that was part of the how an impact the United States plan of increasing NATO membership. Already they succeeded in having Sweden and Finland, that two countries that traditionally were neutral countries, are already members of NATO. No, so so that's for one part. On the other part, we have also, I mean, China that is like in the US. There's a lot of tension in the Pacific, and a tension that continues to increase, because the US, I mean, it continues to bring to give military support to Taiwan, and to expand their military influence in the Philippines and in other allied countries, like in South Korea and others. And obviously that has increased the tension in China, while China also has like the intention of expanding their political and economic influence and hegemony in that area and other areas through the Silk Road or other projects. No, so in that sense, also the European countries have been forced to like they have not done it so like said clearly, like in the Ukraine against Russia, but still here the US is pressuring them to take sides in the struggle against China. Europe has a big trade relationship with China, and they wouldn't like to miss it. Still, there's pressure from the US, and still that they have to align themselves in some other issues. No, and for Russia, of course, it's like they had been like with their main project 10, 15 years ago was the Eurasiatic Economic Union. That it was a project that intended to create some sort of free economic trade area in different areas of the post-Soviet space. It didn't include all the former Soviet republics. It included only some of them, but they had a lot of economic agreements. It had already Belarus, Kazakhstan, Armenia, that will eventually leave, maybe because there's a very complicated transition now in Armenia. It's and Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan as a pending member. No, so these countries, that political project also crashed with with, I mean, the intended expansion of by one side the European Union, but also side security by by NATO. No, so altogether in this context, I mean, Europe has to take sides, and Europe is not one country, it's not one unified voice. Europe, the complicated thing of the European Union and its members, and then the UK, that is not a European member anymore. But I mean, it's like it's very difficult for them to have like a shared foreign policy. No, so it's been the interest of the member states in which they share a Schengen area, but they are not completely aligned in migratory policies. And that, for example, that's something very complicated, because it's like you have a Schengen area that is a common transit area, but the visas are handled by each country, no, or many things. So it's like so they share some things, they are separated in others, and that complicated relationship has managed to that the single countries, they don't have a lot of power to handle some issues that concern the whole European members. No, so it's like so migration, that can be migration, security, defense, and many others. They have the Eurozone that includes most, but not all the members of the EU, for instance, or many other issues. No, so that leaves them in a weak position to handle their relationship with any other foreign entities. No. The UK also is not in that. I mean, they're already 4 years, no, 3 years since 2000. Yeah, 4 years already since Brexit. But I mean, they also are handling, trying to handle on their own. They have had a lot of problems regarding Brexit. We'll talk a little bit about that. So this is more or less the global context that allows that allows us to understand what are the main features that may influence from the outside. No, if we add also the economic crisis, if we add something that the inflation that has been rising, the thing that the sanctions of which we will talk about later, so the sanctions against Russia that had a counter effect, in the sense that in the moment the European Union and its members started putting sanctions against Russia, Russia started to put sanctions against the EU also, and that also had effect in which they had to acquire, most of the countries were forced to buy energetic from other sources and not from Russia. That increased the price, together with already present inflation in many countries in the last 2 years. So obviously there's a lot of people that were not happy with what was happening. So that created a lot of miscontent in the population. So altogether, I don't know if the presentation, no, it's still not. Let me see one thing. No, still is not seeing it's not visible, right? The presentation, right? No. Okay. File video. One second. No. Okay, well, I will try again. Okay. Yes. Can you see it now? No, or like no. I don't know what's happening. It's a pity that you cannot show the presentation, but still, like okay. But well, I'm sorry. So then, to continue, the impact of the war had many effects in what was happening. No, first of all, it increased the political influence of the United States in most of the EU members. No, it increased, I mean, how they can determine easily issues related with foreign policy. There was a pressure to increase also military aid to Ukraine, and obviously that changed completely the correlation on how the slight or let's say weak attempts to have a European foreign policy independent from the US. So as we mentioned, Sweden and Finland became members of NATO. NATO become a more unified voice. There was a serious attempt to allow any discrepancies of how it was handled, the issue with Ukraine. The sanctions against Russia, as we mentioned, there had a counter effect, but also one of the effects that is like the few actors that were speaking against the war, that is speaking about, let's find a political settlement, let's find a dialogue, let's have a ceasefire, let's have they were not the traditional actors from the main political parties, that they were completely aligned in the speech of what to follow what NATO was saying. So what happened is like the extreme right and some left parties were started to be the voices that were speaking against the war and against sending military aid to Ukraine. So it was there were like the so contrary of what of other periods of history. Now the extreme right in some cases were like more against having a more pragmatic approach in issues regarding the war. So, but also many of the not all the left, but let's say the left that was not aligned with the establishment left social democrat, but other sectors of the left in France, in Germany, were also very critical of continuing the war without the search of a political settlement or a dialogue. No, so altogether, this takes us so is not to the what happened in the European elections in 2024. The last European election, there were like a strong call for of alarm for many in Europe because it was a huge race in the result for the extreme right, but still it didn't allow the extreme right to block any possibility of changing something in the European Parliament. At the end, the main groups, I mean, the popular, the European People's Party had 188 of 720 congressmen. So, and together with the Alliance of Social Democrats and the Liberals, they managed to have a very, I mean, the minimum alliance to re-elect von der Leyen and as the chief commissioner in the EU. So it was like the establishment parties won, but still it was clear present that the voice of the extreme right had grown a lot. What happened in 3 countries of the 27 members, the extreme right was the first political force. These 3 countries were Austria, France, and Italy. No, so Austria, France, and Italy were that was a very strong sign of alarm, in which the extreme right, I mean, they become the most voted political party in the European elections. I mean, that doesn't have to translate directly in a change of government in these countries. But I mean, it only reflects what's the political mood in the moment. No, it's like to say, okay, let's give attention to this. What needs to be done, because there was no need to call for elections. In that sense, I mean, Emmanuel Macron thought that, I mean, he tried to, like, in a way of sounding an alarm bell, that it would be better, and was considered by many as a huge political mistake, to call for elections, to call for parliamentary elections weeks after the terrible result they had. So now I will speak briefly, and still, hold on, let me hold on. Let me see once. Hmm.
Prakash, I think there is a network problem. Can you please contact him? Yes, you are disconnected. I can I cannot see you, or I cannot hear you also on the screen. There is some problem with the network. Yes. Okay. I am asking Prakash to look into the matter. হ্যাঁ বলছি এই তো 5-7 মিনিট হয়ে গেল। ওনা স্পিকারের সঙ্গে নেটওয়ার্ক ইস্যু কিছু ছিল, তো ডিসকানেক্টেড হয়ে গেছেন, ছবিও আসছে না, আমি শুধু স্ক্রিনে আমাকেই দেখতে পাচ্ছি। তুমি ওনাকে অ্যালাউ করো আবার।
Okay, now I'm visible. Okay, and also the presentation, if possible, so like so I can share it. So like it's
Yes.
okay. Perfect.
Can you
Perfect.
hear
Perfect.
me?
Oh, perfect. Well, perfect. Okay. So so
Yes,
here we
yes,
are.
I can see the presentation also.
Perfect. So okay. So okay, I'll retake where I left. So we were speaking just about the geopolitical struggle about around Ukraine and its impact. We mentioned about the political effects of the war in Ukraine. So how the political influence of the United States increased in most of the UN members. There's a clearly visible lack of independent foreign policy of the EU, and Sweden and Finland already became NATO members. No, so the sanctions against Russia brought also a counter effect against many European countries, in which once economic sanctions are applied, it's more difficult, for example, for some countries that have a strong economic relationship with Russia, like for example Germany or Italy or others. It was like also a counter effect for them, no? And it's like for one part of the population, it was very visible the fact that they were not able of trading anymore in different areas with Russia. That's why this became one of the main flags of the extreme right, in which to say it is like, well, we have to defend our own instead of defending like the interest of Ukraine. No? So in this sense, they were like mostly, but not only, the people that were speaking against the war were either extreme right parties or some of the left. Let's say that the left that was not allied with the political establishment also was against the direct confrontation with Russia and the lack of a political settlement. So I was speaking exactly about the result of the European elections. So as you may see, this was barely enough. I mean, the first two groups together with the yellow one, they managed to have the minimum necessary to have a majority that allow von der Leyen and the European Commission to get elected. So, but still, we have that a lot of extreme right parties. So these ones here and here, I mean, increasing their numbers. No, so it's like there are different kinds of extreme right parties, but still they increase. I mean, their presence in the parliament. So at the end, there was these two parties and the Social Democrats that were like able to make a coalition to allow von der Leyen to happen. We were speaking about the French Republic in France, the different phases. Just to conclude, one of the main issues, I mean, is like the first two, as I mentioned, were very short-lived. The third was like a very strong parliamentary regime, and also the fourth. And one of the main features of the fifth is that it gave a lot of power to the president compared to what had been lived before in France. France became officially some sort of semi-presidential republic. Semi-presidential means that, I mean, the president has a lot of power regarding foreign policy, regarding defense. It can dissolve the parliament under certain circumstances, and so it allows them to block many of the issues even decided by the parliament. So it gives a lot of power to the president. It's only of the few semi-presidential systems in Europe. It's similar to the one found in Poland, Romania, and Bulgaria. So, and in that sense, the president has an important role. It's not only symbolic, like can be in Germany, for example, or in Slovakia or in Hungary or in other countries, now, for example, or in Italy, for example, that it has a very limited role on what the president can do. Here in France, the president has a lot of power, and he may nominate the prime minister, but also there can be a vote of no confidence that can obviously that would need another selection of prime minister. What happened? The parliament is chosen in 577 constituencies in a two-round system. No, it's not like the first place in each district wins. No, you have a two-round system, and in which you can have two or more candidates in the second round, because if any candidate that has more than 5% advances to the second round. So you may have two or three or even four candidates in the fourth round if none of them won 50% of the votes in the first round. That allows a big combination of or alliances, because sometimes small parties, I mean, they depend on alliances to have access to some seats, no? So, and that was very clear in the last election, the kind of alliance that happened. I will explain later, but it's not only, I mean, it's very common of the French system that it is like this kind of alliances after the first round. This system also tends to beneficiate the president that has won the election. Normally, there are parliamentary elections after the presidential election almost immediately, so that allows the president to almost always have a comfortable majority. There have been some exceptions with Lionel Jospin some years ago, or now the current situation with Macron, of which we will speak. So, who is Emmanuel Macron? A little bit to understand. He had a combination of a career in the banking sector and public service, and but he rose to notoriety when he was appointed Minister of Economics and Industry in 2017. The Valls cabinet was under François Hollande. François Hollande was a president under the Social Democrat Party, but Macron was only a militant for some time of the party, but then he left the party. He left the Social Democrat Party, the Socialist Party, and it's like he was always he had a very close relationship with banks. He was always proposal of making economic reforms related to, to aid the to aid the rich and to aid the banks or to aid the pro business. He was always considered like a pro business candidate, and he was very appreciated in that sense for many of the political establishment in the main French companies. He started his own political party en marche, that means on the way, and for the 2017 election, there was clearly in that moment, if we see the results, people was not happy with the traditional political parties. France had always been, since the Fifth Republic, France had always had two main parties: the Gaullist party, that is like can be related to the Republicans, and the Socialist Party, So that is a social democrat party in practice, but of socialists, they have been at the end very moderate, very attached to the political establishment also. So both parties, for many different reasons, people were not happy with them. There was like a lack of trust in traditional institutions, so that's why there were people are looking for different alternatives of whom to vote. There was a race already here seen in this election in 2017 of the extreme right, in which we see how Marine Le Pen, the daughter of Jean-Marie Le Pen, the founder of the National Front, that is like an extreme right party with a speech against strong anti-immigration, strong like that try always to blame many of the issues related on the openness of the French society. They were very critical of the mix of all the immigrants and that were arriving to the French society, and they used that as a weapon to blame everything on and to get political gains. So they had a big gain in this election, but also another left appeared, of which we will speak, that is guided by Jean-Luc Mélenchon, that he had also left the the Socialist Party years ago, and to found the La France Insoumise. La France Insoumise, that is it's a party that is strong critic of neoliberalism, a strong critic of the way the economy and the political economy had been handled. He was proposing a big, until now, a big reform in all the improve the welfare and improve also a bigger tax reform against the rich. So this is the election 2017. In that context, as we can see, there's the traditional Socialist Party was in a terrible situation. There were like a lot of scandals, but also the other traditional party, Republicans, they didn't manage to get to the second round. So we had a second round, Macron against Le Pen, in which obviously the fear of Le Pen, the fear of having the extreme right, was a lot bigger than the fact of than any other thing. So that allowed Macron to easily win the second round against Le Pen, 66% against 33%, and become president. And his first term was very comfortable because he also had a very comfortable parliament majority with his new party. He had 350 or 577 seats, and he started to push his reforms. He had a lot of reforms, a lot of labor reforms. He had a strong relationship with labor union because he intended, and he managed to make some changes in the labor union code. And but until that moment, he had some success. It was also the moment in 2017 in which there was some terrorist attacks, one of them with knives, that had a big impact in French society. So there was a new anti-terrorist law that is like that it was, let's say, accepted and tolerated, but still considered that it was evolving on personal freedoms. In that moment, Macron had a very different relationship with Russia. He was trying more to have like a more negotiating. There were strong economic and military agreements between France and Russia, and they wanted to maintain them for them it was important to maintain those. And so at the end, he was more in a dialing position with Russia, but that would change years after, no? So what happened in the years later? There was controversial labor and social policies, including the reform of pension state. The retirement age was increased by 2 years. There were a lot of protests and rallies, not only because of the pension state, but many different issues. There was also the assassination of Nael, that was a young French a guy that was killed by the police, and it was also a big scandal, a big critic of how the police was handling and was targeting people of black color, and that was also a big scandal during his government. No, so altogether, after he won the second election in 2022, he lost the majority. No, so we can see that what happened in the 2022 elections. Again, it was the three main parties, because also the right didn't manage to have, the traditional right didn't manage to have a strong candidate. We had in the presidential election that it was very, very close between Mélenchon, the left candidate, Jean-Marie Le Pen, extreme right, and Macron, that he was always portrayed as a moderate. And so here there was a big strategical mistake, that there was not an alliance with the other left parties, because an alliance with other left parties here would have allowed Mélenchon to go to the second round, because as you may see, it was very close. I mean, 21-25 to 23-15 from Marine Le Pen. And here at the end is like it was closer also, the result from Le Pen, but still the anti-fascist, the anti-extreme right sentiment feeling is like has a lot more weight in France than the fact of that any other thing. So it was like it was a vote against Le Pen in this case, in which the people really certainly did not want the extreme right to arrive to power. No, and that the same for the parliamentary election already in 2022. There was an alliance with in many leftist parties that allowed them to have an increased participation. Macron lost the majority, as we can see. He had 244 out of 577. So he was forced to make agreements with other parties, small agreements, because he still had a strong presence. But I mean, and he mostly was like governing with some sectors of the right, of right parties. No, I mean, media always tries to portray Macron as a center. He's different kind of right. I mean, I mean, many of us would say that center in politics does not exist, because it's the lack of compromise with any of the, if any position. I mean, Macron has always been flirting with the banks, flirting with the right. It's always that he also has the flag of defending a lot of traditional liberal values that the some sectors of the right don't like. But I mean, it's like altogether, this was a very weak position of Macron. So besides, there was also the fact that in this context, we had the 2024 European elections, in which the National Front became the first party. So Macron thought that he could use again this anti-fascist element to try to have new elections and maybe increase his majority to be able of ruling better. No, so that was like the bet. It was a very risky bet. Many of his entourage were not agree. They didn't agree to the fact that they thought it was a political mistake. But I mean, he tried to risk saying, "Okay, let's call for elections." No. Besides that, there's other. I will make a quick small mention of what had happened with the French foreign policy. No, there were a lot of the French foreign policy had been extremely limited. It was in the last years. No, there, as you may know, there were different coup d'état in different countries in the Sahel, in Africa, Burkina Faso, Mali, Chad, and Niger. These are countries that were always, I mean, there were ex-French colonies, and French had had the capacity of have a lot of influence. They still control many of the resources, of the natural resources of these countries, and they still had a lot of political influence. No, so for them it was like some sort of they were used to have some sort of puppet regimes that were very handled by France. what happened? That the new governments are little by little breaking the ties with France, and that has not been appreciated. France, they speculated with the idea of sending military intervention to Africa, but that was not well received by another African countries, and at the end they didn't even have their support from the US. So they had to, at the end they were not able of doing anything while these countries changed let's say the geopolitical orientation. No, these countries, they in a slower or bigger degree, they are having some sort of military agreements with Russia, and they are trying, at least in the facade, we don't know, still the situation is changing, but show that they're a lot more independent in regardings with France, and to have a more autonomous decision making related with their own, so especially energetic resources. No, because there are countries that, even if though are maybe some of the poorest countries in the world, they have they have uranium, they have lithium, they have a lot of minerals that until now they are mostly in the hands of French or foreign companies. No. Also, one of the criticism was the slow reaction to support Armenia. Armenia has lost the territory, let's say lost, because it's existing in close support, former called Nagorno-Karabakh or Artsakh Republic, that it was 99% populated by Armenia's territory. It was an unsolved issue of the post-Soviet Union, in which and Armenia and Azerbaijan have been having a very tense relationship since the fall of the Soviet Union. No, there's different wars, different military struggles, and Armenia does not have the military power to oppose Azerbaijan. They were depending on Russian support and eventually French support. So the fact is that once the current government in Armenia has decided to reduce the relation with Russia and to diminish Russian support, that allowed only France to have the possibility of influencing, and France was not able to participate in the same level. Why France? Because there's a big Armenian diaspora in France. France is one of the countries in the world that has one of the biggest Armenian diasporas, and that's why. And they also have they are very visible in France. So that's why they have some important political impact. So that allows, that makes France also to feel obliged to give some support to Armenia. That didn't happen. That was very reduced. Yes, there was some military agreements, but the military support, but it was very, very reduced, and in no way to the possibility to oppose the increasing strong position of Azerbaijan. That Azerbaijan, by one side, it's a country with a lot of energetic resources, and that had the full economic and military support of Erdogan in Turkey. So that make it a very unbalanced struggle. Also, France's role was completely absent, to say, in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict of the last year. So at the end, it's like while Netanyahu has proceeded, to complete the completely savage operation in Gaza, and it's like nobody has raised the voice seriously in Europe to say that it has to stop and to push for a political settlement. And France was not able to have any influence, while the US continues to support openly Israel and Netanyahu. No, so again, it's like it was an element in which the French policy was completely like let's say ignore, not consider. The French position was not simply absent. There was a complete absence of the French position on this world. And also in another conflict that is in Lebanon. Lebanon has some already. Lebanon also was a country that used to have a lot of French influence. The French defined their complex and bizarre political settlement existing in Lebanon. And until now, Lebanon has had already many years of political paralysis, because they have a very specific system in which the president has to be a Christian Maronite, the prime minister has to be a Sunnite, a Muslim Sunnite, and the leader of the parliament a Muslim Shiite. No, so this combination had allowed that there was like the Christian Maronites were always very influenced by France, but that's not the case anymore. And it's like there's a big paralysis in Lebanon that together with the tension with neighboring Israel and other elements, has like Lebanon. It is like it has many elements of a failed state. Altogether, this is like some of the issues in which France was not able of portraying this like to pretend to be still like a foreign power, like the same role. I mean, they sometimes like many of the French presidents would like to they have this like neo-colonial vision in which they would like to have to participate and have a role in many of the different countries in the world. But in all these issues, France was completely incapable of having a strong position and to be really have a role comparing with what was doing the United States, China, Russia, or other countries like Turkey, etc., no? Or Israel. No, so altogether, that takes us to the last election, in which this is the European election we were talking about, in which effectively the extreme right won. I mean, like very, very clearly, and so this was a sound of alarm for many, and that many consider that the best thing was to do. They still had 3 years more of government, and it was better to leave them to continue with the current government and not to risk an election. Still, Macron preferred to do the opposite, and he risked a new election. And also we have to add that there were all the elements that were also added before because of the political Olympics. No, so like France obtained the host of the Olympics in 2020 in 2017. It was already under Macron presidency. They were like these are like small controversies, but it's also part of the controversies regarding the games. But there were attempts to move like all the booksellers that are called bouquinistes, that are traditionally vintage selling in many who the ones that know Paris. It's very common in France to find these people that they sell old books, all LDs or disc music, etc. No, so and altogether there was also a huge controversy regarding the competitions in the Seine River because of the levels of pollution. At the end, it was like they maintained it. Triathlon and open waters competition took place there, even though all the time the pollution on the river, it was really, really high. But nevertheless, it took place. No, so there was a campaign against the Olympic Games financed by Azerbaijan to counter French support. It didn't have a lot of success, but still they were doing in social media and TikToks and others, trying like to hit the games or trying to underline deficiencies or other stuff. But it was mostly because Azerbaijan, they didn't want the French to support the Armenian anyway, no? So also there were several accusations of social cleansing to remove migrants and homeless people from the streets for the games. That's a big issue in France regarding in Paris specifically the situation with homeless people. And but also there was a controversy about this is not completely regarding to the French government, but also how the sanctions against Russia, because it's like well, there were sanctions against Russia, but there were not sanctions against Israel for participation in the games. So it's like there was like a contradiction in the criteria, and in that sense, France and also local authorities completely supported the IOC, the International Olympic Committee position of sanctioning only Russia, which was able of participating only as a neutral athletes, with a delegation of neutral athletes for Russia and Belarus. But there was absolutely no kind of sanction against Israel for the massacre they are committing in Gaza. No, so altogether, this is like some issues, and this is the election that took place. Just weeks before the election, in which we have the party, the left party from Jean-Luc Mélenchon, that became the main political force from the left. It was like he managed this time all the left parties. They organized a coalition. They managed to be all together, and they became a big political force. Still not enough to rule, because you have here Macron and his allies and all other allies of the rest, this one and then the extreme right. But the thing is that they managed to, after the extreme right had a very strong first round polling, in the second round there were a lot of alliances, and it was agreed that only the closest, many of the candidates that were not in a winning position, either from the left parties or either from the parties related to Macron, they opted not to participate in the second round, so to avoid any possibility of the extreme right to gaining more seats. So the extreme right, yes, they had like a big participation, but still not in a position to determine the government. And until now, it's not clear what will happen. Yet the prime minister presented his resignation. They are still waiting to nominate someone. Like the thing is, like, they have been trying to make some sort of alliance between Macron's party and the Republicans, the traditional right parties, but it's not enough to give them a majority, no? So you need is like around 280, I think, something like that should be the. So it's not enough for them. So any kind of agreement would need either to have an agreement with the left or to have an agreement with the extreme right. So it's like until now it's not clear what happened. There's sort of an impasse. Macron can only call off new elections until 1 year after the elections. It's possible that if he doesn't see, because he definitely has not shown any interest of having a political agreement with the left. So until now, he has been only trying like with this for some parliamentary institutions, but still they need to have a majority to have a government, because if not, they will not able to have a sustainable government, and it will be very complicated to rule for the next 3 years. So either there's some sort of political agreements to one of the actors, or they will have elections in around 10 months and a half or something like that. So then, so the French left is, like I mentioned, is like the main party is La France Insoumise. That it means the rebel France. It's a party launch. Hold on. It's a party launched by this one. This one here. It's a party launched by Jean-Luc Mélenchon. Sorry for the mistake there. It became the main political force after the last election. He was presidential candidate 3 times in 2012, 17, and 22. And he has been a very critic of neoliberalism and proposes to reinforce labor rights and improve welfare. He also has been a critic of the giving military support to Ukraine, and he's pushing for a limited role of NATO. He's portrayed as anti-European Union, but he's not anti-European Union, but he's very critic of the actual ways in which the European Union is more worried about defending banks, defending rich, defending enterprises, but it's not not defending, I mean, the common worker. No, so it's like he was very close to get to the second round in the 2017 and 2022 election, and he's like one of the main opposition force, and it's like he's visibly he will try again to be presidential candidate in the next elections, and he's like one of the visible leaders of the left. The only thing is that the left is like a huge problem in Europe usually is that the left is very, very divided. So we have in this left, we have the Socialist Party, that is a very moderate party, so that usually not this time, but usually they don't have problems to understand themselves a lot better with the right. We have the Green Party, and we have the Communist Party. The Communist Party that also is like that comes from the tradition from the Euro-communism, that was a very specific way of communism that were broke with the Soviet Union many years ago, and still there are like a small visible political force, but they never wanted to make an alliance with, for example, Mélenchon. No, it would have given them a stronger position, but he didn't want to make an alliance with Mélenchon, and they wanted to maintain themselves alone. It's a continuous problem in many European countries that there are a lot of left parties. They are very divided, and that makes them not have the enough political strength that they could have in other ways if they would be stronger. No, so we mentioned about this a little bit. And this is like the current context in which we have to see what will happen if Macron will, how he pretends to rule the next years of, he still has almost 3 years of government. So how he intends to rule. He has to, under this scheme, to have some sort of political understanding, either with the left or with the extreme right. And but until now, he has not made it clear. But I mean, I think it's more possible that we will have another parliamentary election in a year when he is able of dissolving the parliament again. But it will be worse for him because it's like he already people they don't want to vote. People already notice that there are more options. I mean, they voted him because he was like an anti-establishment candidate in this moment in 2017, but there's not. He doesn't have the. He's not politically attractive anymore, even though he tried to capitalize. I mean, the results of the games because the games mostly they were a success, and he was, and also for the regarding the sports part and the but also mostly except the river, the pollution in the river. In general, the French people were very happy with the organization. So altogether, this is the situation now. I will make a. I mean, we'll go back here later to this, and like later, I will make because to have time to make also a small recap regarding UK. So we'll go to the UK. So what's happening in the UK? No, so in the UK, well, it's completely different context, completely different situations. They had 14 years of Tory government in which the UK has a political system in which practically there have always been, I mean, there's only a real possibility of having two parties. It's either the Conservative Party or it's either the Labour Party. No, it's like, and so there's no march for any third option. Not because there are no third parties, but it's like there are not the political system in which everything is chosen in single constituencies, but not with a second round system. There's no proportional system on anything. Allows always the strongest parties to have like the main political position. No? So altogether, we had like these 14 years of Tory government. They were completely different. I mean, in many things, and so a big evolution. No, because David Cameron, when he arrived in 2010, I mean, he was like a traditional member of the Conservative Party. He wanted to lower taxes. He wanted to diminish spending. He wanted to diminish austerity. He wanted to make cuts, and but also there was already present in his own party and in other parties in the extreme right. It was showing that there was there were people not happy with the role they had in the European Union. No? So it's like I will go back this. For example, let's to mention some features on the David Cameron government. It was the first hung parliament in the UK since 1954. So that meant that for the first time in many years, they were forced to have some sort of alliance with the Liberal Democrats. It was a coalition that, I mean, in which the Liberal Democrats were not able of pushing for almost anything of the things they wanted to do. They really wanted to make some sort of a political reform that would allow some sort of proportionality, because one of the main critics of the UK political system is that as there is no proportionality, medium or small parties are practically diminished or disappear from political representation. No? So that's why the Liberal Democrats were pushing some sort of political reform, but at the end, it was not able. But it's altogether the Scottish political party had a small gain here. It's very important also to mention that usually, and we will notice that later on, that when the Labour Party has a stronger participation in elections, the Scottish National Party diminishes, or the opposite, no? Because it's like Scotland has a very specific situation which we will talk about later. So this was the situation under 2010. David Cameron made an agreement with the Liberal Democrats, but I mean he managed to have a completely, let's say, peaceful government. What happened then? That in the 2015 election, again, the Labour Party was diminished and a lot. The Conservative Party, they had a big gain in result. They had 331 seats, and the Scottish Party won 56 seats. That is a strong gain. I mean, the whole the amount of seats total for Scotland, I think, is 59. So you can imagine if the Scottish National Party won 56 or 59, it shows that it was a really there was a really strong push for the Scottish National Party. That one of the features is that they're very, I mean, they're pro-independence. No, Scotland had just had the independence referendum 1 year before, in which the Scotland, I mean, the no won for, I mean, some very it was a very close margin. So, but still, the desire for independence can be is visible in the result. And the Liberal Democrats, after their disastrous role in the government with Cameron, in which they really didn't count a lot, they were almost not voted. So this was a very common position for Cameron. And but what happened here is like the Cameron decided to do a referendum for Brexit, and that changed completely everything, because Cameron was not for Brexit. What Cameron wanted to maintain the status quo with the European Union. The thing is that Cameron wanted to have to diminish the political role of the European Union, but they were all for the trade part. For the UK, it was very important, all the trade relationship with the EU. No, they wanted to maintain trade. They wanted to maintain all economical activity and banking activity. For them, it was very important, but they didn't want to accept any kind of supranational activity. No, so supranational entity. Sorry. So in this sense, this that was the main struggle in which they had always been focused, in the struggle against the EU. They needed the trade relationship, but they didn't want to be forced to follow any rules dictated by Brussels. No, so they were okay. It was like they wanted the EU to be like some sort of big trade agreement. In that sense, every time that they were like forced by some court related to the EU or something, there were some recommendations. There was also a lot of criticism from the extreme right that they to resist this. So as a way of resisting, Cameron decided to call for the Brexit referendum. He thought that calling for a Brexit referendum was a way of getting rid of all the extreme right, because he thought being in the EU was extremely popular for many. And it's like it was not possible that the extreme right would be able of winning a referendum against the EU, but at the end it happened. No? So it's like after the vote for Brexit, that came as a completely surprise. Cameron had to present his resignation. Because he didn't even have a plan of how to handle Brexit. So he allowed, Theresa May, that was also, close to him, to become prime minister, no? So she tried to invite some of the extreme right of the more right-wing members of the party, like Boris Johnson and Davis. They got all cabinet positions, and they started like what was a very complicated negotiation with the EU for Brexit. They had again the election in 2017, the election that we can see here. They lost a lot of members, but still they managed to cling to a very small majority, thanks to making alliances with the small parties, to the DUP, that is the pro-British party in Northern Ireland. No? So that allowed them to sustain a very slight majority in the parliament. Altogether, then arrives Boris Johnson. That Boris Johnson was not able of handling the negotiator. He had promised a lot, but he was not able of getting all what he promised regarding the Brexit negotiation. It was obvious that one of the main issues was the North Ireland situation, because it was very important in Northern Ireland. As you may know, the border is open. No, the border is open. Northern Ireland is part of the UK, while the rest is part of the Republic of Ireland. But the thing is that as part of the agreement, they have an open border, and that's one of the reasons why the Ireland is not part of the Schengen area, in the full member of the Schengen area in the European Union, because for them, and for many different reasons, it's very important to maintain the border open in whole Ireland. So if you go to Northern Ireland and you want to go to Dublin, you will notice that the border is completely open. So it's like for trade and for people and whatever. So that was one of the main issues. So Boris Johnson was pushing to not allow the North Ireland to remain in the EU rule, but I mean with an open border. So it was very complicated. It was the cost of having a closed border was very high. So at the end, the European Union was in a stronger position that to maintain this, and that was until now. The Northern Ireland has a different, let's say, status for trade than the rest of the UK. No, the negotiation was very, very complicated, and at a certain point, Boris Johnson decides to call for new elections. He wins by a landslide, as we can see here in the screen. This was like the top moment in the sense for Boris Johnson, in which he was able of diminishing. We can see again that the Labour Party, they lost 59 seats, and the Scottish National Party, they won 48 seats, also in a very strong position. No? So it's like altogether, it seemed already that Boris Johnson could have an easy handle of the next 5 years of government. No, even though what happened is like in that same moment, it's important to mention Jeremy Corbyn. Jeremy Corbyn resigned as leader of the Labour Party. Jeremy Corbyn had a strong support from a lot of labor unions. It was like he belonged to the left of the Labour Party. He was very critical of neoliberalism. He was very critical of many of the political or social policies of the Tories government and the establishment of the last years. He was a candidate that was noticeable from the left and very sensible to social needs. What happened that after this election, there was a lot of pressure for him to resign, and that's how Starmer arrived to the party. No, so it's like we'll talk about Starmer later. After that, Boris Johnson was involved in a lot of scandals. The scandals with COVID, the scandals with corruption in his own government. There were many different situations that were scandal one after another, and altogether he was forced to resign on July 2022, after 3 years after this election. And so he was not able anymore, to conclude his government. That allowed, Liz Truss, that he had the shortest tenure of any British prime minister, and after a controversial, he had a very controversial tax reform, and he wanted to, cut taxes against rich people in favor of rich people. And but she was never able for sustaining a working majority in his own party. She was like so. After some weeks, she left the record of the shortest tenure of any prime minister, and that will remain only if Starmer doesn't resign in the next 2 weeks, I think. But if not, that's the record for now for Liz Truss. And that allowed Sunak cabinet, Rishi Sunak to arrive as prime minister. No, so he had to deal with many different things. One of the effect of the Brexit deal that was already negotiated, that was already in place, and Sunak had to manage to with all the effects of Brexit, that there are a lot of effects regarding trade, but also he never lost these images of being a millionaire that had built his fortune through marriage. No, he was always perceived as if you would ask people, it was always like a millionaire in the government. So that didn't make him very popular, and it's he still tried to calm the extreme right sectors of his own party. He tried to have a very aggressive anti-immigration policy. He had a very controversial plan that was the Rwanda asylum plan, in which it was supposed that the asylum seekers would be sent to Rwanda and they would be handled by Rwanda. Meanwhile, they could, their claim could be handled. No, so it's altogether, also Sunak gave, full military support to Ukraine. He's one of the main sponsors, full support to Israel in its fight against Hamas, and then, but altogether, in a moment of in which there has been like economic crisis, not a lot of economic growth. There's like the people were not happy with his government. They were forced already to have elections at the end of the year by December. But still, he risked again another in a strategic mistake. He decided to anticipate the elections and to have the elections in the middle of the summer. So, in a moment in which his popularity was very, very, very low. So, altogether, he called for the election. So we had like we had this result now. So it's like this is the current the last elections. We have the Labour Party with Keir Starmer and like. Conservative Party, they had one of the worst results of the last decades. And again, when what happened, like I mentioned you before, usually when the Labour Party has a strong result, the Scottish National Party diminishes. No, so the Scottish National Party now had nine seats instead of 40 something that they had. So this is like the new the composition. It's a very, very comfortable situation for Starmer. I mean, it's like he's like he's a very moderate candidate. He's like a very he's completely the opposite of Jeremy Corbyn. That Jeremy Corbyn was very popular, like I mentioned, with the union, with labor union, with the social movements, with the different countries of the left, of the European left, so many people he had a very he was very charismatic in this sense. Starmer is a completely moderate. That since Starmer arrived to the lead of the Labour Party in 2017, he started to make a deep purge in expelling all the members, or many of the members that were related to Jeremy Corbyn. So all the left of the party were little by little left out. Many of them were left out in the from the Labour Party, or at least with a position to being candidates in some constituencies. No, so a little bit about the British foreign policy. So it's completely aligned with the US. They have been other 12.5 billion pounds in military assistance support for Ukraine until now. 560 million pounds in weapons sold to Israel. They have supported Saudi Arabia's military operations in Yemen, and no more major foreign policy discrepancies with the United States since the Falkland War in 2002. So this is a little bit of what to expect about Keir Starmer. Well, it's important to mention there was mainly an anti-Tory vote. The same way when Macron arrived to power, it was because people didn't want to vote for the extreme right. There was really a fear of the fascist movement. Here, people were tired of 14 years in which they were only cutting cuts for the national health service and other social and welfare services. So there was a little people, for many different issues, people were already tired of for 14 years, and they wanted a change. The political system, the option that allowed them is that, I mean, Starmer was not very popular, but he was not a Tory. So he managed to gain complete control of the party in the last years and to remain with the control of the party. And he had the good luck that he's to get elections in a moment in which there was clearly a strong anti-Tory sentiment in the UK population. No? So that it will be a very moderate government. It's not expected to have, like mentioned, major shift in foreign policy. He has a very comfortable working majority for the next 5 years. So certainly, I think one of the things he will attend is a need of reform and refund in the National Health Service in the UK that was very shackled and had a lot of troubles with after COVID, and also he's not expected to take many of the reforms and many of the controversial reforms. It's it will be an increase on social spending in some sorts, but it's we shouldn't expect nothing too radical in that sense. But still, I think he will be navigating with a moderate image, like during his government to avoid controversial decisions and to avoid being in any scandals. No, so it's like altogether. Let's see in that moment parallelly that allows like there's also for the to a change in the economic momentum that will allow like the the British electorate to remain the same. Also, another thing is like he has not. Let's see what will happen with the immigration. Obviously, he will not follow with the Rwanda plan. The Rwanda plan that was completely a failure from Sunak. So he will need to present something that is like that is more sellable from that point of view because, from immigration system. I will now I will leave it open for the. I mean to conclude. It was just like a major a small recap. Sorry of what happened in France and the UK. To try to explain what's the political context, what's happening, and like to see like. But I would be willing to listen to any of your questions, doubt if you would like to me to explain something further or with more detail or to go something because this is like this it's a lot of information, a lot of things to say in not a lot of time, so I try like just to make a small recap, so it's like so I hope it's okay. So if anything, thank you for your attention and please let me know. I'm open to your questions and whatever. Okay.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rolando. Thank you very much. And I would ask the audience to send their questions. Prakash or Shomiran, are you there? If there are any questions, please put it on the screen. Okay. In the meanwhile, may I put my questions?
Sure.
Okay. The first thing is that considering the developments in the recent elections in Britain and France, considering the reorientation of politics in these two very important European states,
Yeah.
can we think that there is a possibility of people's moving away from neoliberal economy and the process of globalization or global capital? Is there a possibility, in the Gramscian sense, is there a possibility that people are gradually moving towards some kind of leftism or some socialist orientation in a very broad sense? Can we draw some conclusion about that? That is my first question.
Yes, thank you for your question. I think there are some indications in France that is possible, but it's not. There are only slight indications, and it's like, and there are like baby steps. Let's say, no, it's like because it's like because there's like the political possibility to go in that way, but it's a complicated road because it's like it's at the end it's like you need one of the main issues you need to get power. No, you need to get to the government. You need like it's not enough to have like an important parliamentary representation if you don't get to the government. No, so and that always has to be accompanied with a strong political organization. Yes, there are signs in the left, in the French left, for example, and the party led by Mélenchon an indication of that. But still, it like the divisions on the French left also sometimes they don't allow them to go. It's like you have one going forward and not another pushing back. No, so it's like it's visible, it's possible. There's a will, that's true, and that's very true. People don't want more neoliberalism, neoliberal policies. It's like already it has been proven a failure. It's like we're going to a shift in the paradigm. What kind of paradigm it will be? It will be some sort of another way in which capitalism will be organized or something else. We will have to see. But it's clear that people, in some way, they are tired of what neoliberalism predicates. No, we can see that. I mean, because most of the in fact, many of the arguments include also that are used by the extreme right are arguments that used to be left arguments. It's like because the extreme right is also criticizing the neoliberalism. Of course, they add, unfortunately, I mean, they also add the racist and the anti-migrant and all the other, I mean, many things that of which we can be very critical, but they also are criticizing and they're using for their own purposes that. So it's very important that the left manages to take them the idea of retaking sovereignty, to have like but also of political organization, that the left manages to do it. I think in the French case, French has like a strong history of political organization, and I think one of the main bastions of resistance against many of the reforms in Europe have been France, Italy, and Spain. And because there still are strong labor movements, there still are protests. There's people that go to the streets when when they do not agree with something. So there are some signs about it. Unfortunately, it's not enough to make it like. Still, it doesn't mean it's not possible, but still it's like to make it like to bring a completely political transformation, because obviously you need to, I mean, go further. But yeah, there's some signs. In the case of the UK, I don't see it, unfortunately, because Starmer is very, very moderate, and after the purge he did against all the elements of the Corbyn wing in the party, so there should be a new push by one side inside the party to give a stronger push for the left, but also there's a completely need of a political reform in the UK, because it's a political system that allows that nothing change, because you can have an alternation of Tory and Labour government forever, and it's like, and the establishment would be very comfortable with that, but that doesn't not allow to have like a real representative of a real representation of many other groups that are not visible. No, so it's like in the UK it's more complicated, and until now. But let's see. I mean, politics is always changing, so let's see. So yeah.
And more specifically, what would you say about the new governments? What kind of attitude they are going to have about the Palestine question, the very complicated case of the Hamas attack. A lot of people criticize that attack and the uh, counter attack by Israel. A lot of people in India, we find a lot of progressive left people, they are supporting the Palestinian people, and the huge oppression which has been imposed, perpetrated upon the people of Pakistan by Israel. And some people in India, they who are advocates of neoliberal policies and global capitalism, they are in favor of Israel. They are supporting the attacks of Israel, and they are saying that Hamas compelled Israel to take revenge. And regarding this controversial issue, I don't know what will be your personal attitude. Uh, you can add that
Yeah,
to
of
your
course.
analysis. But specifically, will what will be the expected policy, the policy likely to be pursued by Britain and France, especially the governments with new orientations?
Yes. Well, it's a complicated issue. I mean, regarding the UK is completely aligned in foreign policy with the United States. So the UK, they are not willing to break, and they have shown that clear to any, even if a majority of the population, there's a strong local support for, there's sympathy for Palestine for many people in the UK, but I mean that will not translate in a change of policy by the current UK government. I mean, they will continue to support Israel, and they will maybe say, I mean, they will say to the year Netanyahu, please don't be so bad. But like officially, they will continue like to support, because it's like they are not in a position to break that. I mean, obviously, regarding my position, yeah, of course, I'm very critic. I'm very like of the role of how Israel is handling. It's a completely massacre, and has treats of, can be called a genocide, and the way they're treating the people of Palestine, in which there is no complete, this out of complete will of finding a political solution. By one side, Israel has continued to build settlements in the West Bank, and in the West Bank, they have not tried to fight any kind of dialogue, never. And obviously, and there's no indication that they want to do so, because the indication is that they want to continue to crush, I mean, the all the Palestinian peoples from there until Palestine is disappeared, no, and it's completely already. It's a full by settlement. So it's a very, very sad situation. Like, obviously, it's like in this, we are sometimes facing a moment of fundamentalism, sometimes you critique Israel, and they want to put you the label that you are pro Hamas. That is completely absurd, no? So I think any human being would be strongly critic of the things, of the kidnappings by Hamas, and would not support Hamas. But that doesn't mean you cannot be sympathetic with the position of how all the suffering that the Palestinian people are passing by. I think in general in Europe, people, many in countries like France, for example, most of the people support the Palestine, but that won't translate again now in a change of foreign policy. Like Macron, now with a weak government, unless he tries like to make a shift, but it doesn't seem like he's trying like to break with the United States. He's like this internal weakness that he has. It has been also shown that externally he is depending on a close support from the US. So he's giving the US all what they want in support to Ukraine, support to Israel, and even though they can push for dialogue and etc., but they're not current Macron. There are a lot of political forces in France instead, in the left. Most of the left would agree that there has to be a two-state solution. Most of the left in France would agree in supporting Palestine and criticizing strongly and having stronger actions against Netanyahu of what they're doing. But until they are not in the government, I mean, let's see what happens. No, so we still don't know if there will be an agreement between the left and Macron, and how that could be seen eventually. No, but yeah, there are many people in the left in France that are very critical of that would like to push for a two-state solution, and at least to force a ceasefire. And to retake the idea of finding a political solution that is dead for already many years. No, so it's already many years since there was a real dialogue in the political dialogue between different political forces between Palestine and Israel. So it's urgent, but Israel won't do anything without foreign political pressure. And while they have to continue to have the support from the United States, they don't mind. No, of course, it will be fundamental for European countries and the EU and France to have an independent policy. It is in the European Union interest to have a stable situation in Palestine. It is in the European interest to have a two-state solution viable and politically sustained. But the thing is, they are not thinking in the European political interest. They're following the lead of the Washington tells them. So that's a problem. So it's like once they notice that it's convenient for them to have an independent foreign policy and that the interest of Europe in Palestine and Israel is different than the interest of the United States, one day they notice that and they decide to act concordantly accordingly to that, we can expect something different. I don't see that from Macron unless he's pushed by some sort of alliance that will come out of this parliament. But until now, we don't see it now. But it's like, but still, at least the political forces that sustain political solution in Palestine are visible and are like trying to make their voices be heard.
Thank you very much. Prakash, are there any questions? Well, Pranab Acharji, he put this question: in the global scenario of Indian influence, is there any effect reflected on last UK election? Probably he is trying to ask you whether there is any effect reflected on last UK elections.
Yes. Well, I mean, I think. I mean, it's. I don't know how much it could be the influencing the election, but mostly the issue is like in the last UK, people were tired of the Tory party. No, it's like it was like they were 14 years in power, and and mostly people wanted a change. I cannot say like I mean I am not expert in Indian foreign policy, so like but still I from what I see for its perceived, I don't think it was like the main element to determine. There was really people there was tired of the of what remained the Tory government. No, so like. I think it was not like the main issue to be here, even though I mean it's like it would have to be analyzed or how like because sometimes with officially what happened officially, but what happened under the waters could be different. No, but it's like but from a first perspective, it was mainly that people wanted a change or something. It was an anti-Tory vote because of all the spending costs, health, national services, social welfare, many programs that were already cut and diminished by the last administrations, in which there were subsidies for pregnant women, social services for kids, for sickness, for many things that were already cut in the last administrations. So people were tired of that, and like and also that the migrant proposal, the Rwanda plan, was really completely out of touch with reality. No, so it's like if you see in a map where Rwanda is located, and you pretend that you are sending asylum seekers to Rwanda while they will be handled and everything, it's like a completely out of reality, that proposal. So plus the image of Sunak, I think it was more his image of millionaire, of being attached to the economic and elite, that they didn't like. No, I think that was like the more than any other thing. So it's like he was always seen and had the label of being a millionaire and the husband of an heir, and that was like, so it's very difficult to get to have an image of being in contact with the common people when you already arrive like a millionaire that got his fortune through heritage, So it's like I think those were the elements that like weighed them more, like in the last election. So.
There is another question from Prakash Chakraborty. French and UK elections, what is the impact on the markets?
Well, I mean, we'll have to see, but I mean, I think in the UK case, it won't be they won't have a big impact. I mean, we will have like still like at the end, those are the two establishment parties are well accepted by the markets, and it's like it was a landslide victory, and it's like there was some fear from the, I mean, the markets at the end, the markets are not autonomous. The markets are respond to people, respond to companies, to respond to the big the big corporations. No, so for example, there was fear in the big corporations when Jeremy Corbyn was candidate by the Labour Party, because always the rich people fear what the left could do them, maybe regarding tax reforms or other things. In this case, they don't fear the Starmer government. It's a very moderate candidate, so it's like it's not visible any reaction. In the French case, I mean, it's still not clear what the government will be, so we have to know. In any case, it will be some kind of negotiated, I mean, coalition government. So until we will know the impact. But it's like it's very difficult that it will be something that will be against the interest of the market, so against the interest of the status quo, because it's like at the end there has to be some political agreement. The left is not in a position to challenge with the amount of congressmen they have now. So it will have some sort of balanced agreement among all the political force. So obviously, I mean, thinking from the market perspective and the corporations, how they always try to push to have some sort of stability, and they don't like to have the fact of having not making it so visible. But still, I don't think it's like there's nothing to be. I mean, worried about. It means like in that sense. France is a stable country economically. I mean, even though they have some sort of economic impasse, but I mean, they still have a solid economy as member of the Eurozone and member of the European Union, and also the UK. So it's like it's big changes. Won't be related with the election. Even though we may be seeing, as I mentioned before, some slight shift in the paradigm of the economic paradigm in the next years. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Sir, there any question from Pradip Basu, sir?
Yes. No. It is done. Is there any other question from anyone?
One question, sir. What is the role of women in voting in France and UK?
The role of what? Sorry.
Women.
In the UK. Well, I mean, yeah, I don't have the numbers, but I mean, there's I can for sure it's more or less around half of the parliament members are women. Is like where the UK is one of the countries in which they have a very strong representation in that sense. So it's like I don't have the statistic right now with me, but it's like there's the and regarding voting. Usually it's like it's very diverse. I cannot I don't have the number to tell you. I mean, if like for example, if the woman, I think there's a very diverse electorate. It's not that, for example, in some countries you may see that most women vote for certain parties. Here is more diverse. For example, no, at the end there was a shift regarding. I mean, people voted, men and women voted for the Labour Party massively in the UK. And men and women voted also for. They didn't want Macron to be to have a majority in the recent election. So also you see people voting for the left from both sides of the spectrum. No, so it's like it will be interesting. I don't have numbers to see. Like it is true that regarding now the members, no, for example, like not you will not see the same amount, maybe, for example, of the political representation in each party. Not in all parties they have half and half of women and men. But regarding, I mean, the polling tendency, yeah, it's I think it's more related to issues like social class, income, like ethnicity, maybe, like where do they live, etc. So there are other issues to be considered in which that influence them. Whether about people from the cities, for example, people from the cities, big cities, tended to vote more from the left in France, and so. So it depends on more on that. So it's not a case that is like more than one party was voted for women and the other by men. No? So it's like, but still, we don't have to check like more detail. No? So.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
So we conclude here, and we are really very grateful. Thanks a lot to Dr. Rolando for his time and for his elaborate explanation. And thanks to the audience, thanks to Rashtrabigyan Charcha Kendra. We would expect, we would hope that we will we will be able to invite Dr. Ronaldo once again on some other issue. Thank you very much for coming here.
No, thank you to you, Professor. I was very glad. Really, I was very honored by the invitation. I mean, I'm sorry for myself for the technical issues, but still, I would be honored also to participate again through a webinar or in person. If I manage to be there once in Calcutta, I would really like to visit the city once. So yes, like thank you very much. So we'll keep in touch for sure. So I think we have a lot of the teams to share in common, so which we could argue, because there's no, I left the door open for anything you would need. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you everybody for the invitation.
Good night.
All right.
Thank you.